It began as a brotherhood, a code forged in the raw, unforgiving streets of Sydney's west. Bankstown, Auburn, Parramatta, neighborhoods where poverty shaped ambition, where loyalty was currency, and where betrayal came with a death sentence. They called themselves Brothers for Life, a name that promised unity but delivered bloodshed. From prison cells to street corners, one man sought to rule them all. Bassam Hamzy, the inmate who redesigned Sydney's underworld from behind steel doors. His influence seeped out of Goulburn's walls like smoke from a fire that refused to die. What started as protection became power, and what started as unity became a vicious machine fed by fear. For young men with nothing to lose, the Brotherhood offered identity, purpose, and an enemy to point their rage at. You're watching Crime Cipher, faceless, respectful, relentless. Before we decode his deadly game, hit that subscribe button for more real-life mysteries like this every week on Crime Cipher.
Campaign of terror in Australian suburbia. There have been murders, shootings, kneecappings and extortion.
The General. In 2007, Bassam Hamzy sat inside a maximum security cell in Goulburn Supermax, already serving 21 years for murder. But walls meant nothing to a man who understood people better than any psychologist ever could. From behind bars, Hamzy built a network using smuggled phones, family connections, and old street soldiers who still feared his name. He united crews who had spent years firing shots at each other and gave them a simple banner: Brothers for Life. No religion, no race, no background, only the Brotherhood. At first, it brought order to chaos. Bankstown and Auburn dealers stopped their petty turf battles and started printing money instead. Drugs, weapons, stolen cars, intimidation rackets. Every dollar flowed back to Hamzy's cell in thick, folded bundles. Guards started calling him the General, and even they spoke his name with caution. But an empire built on fear is an empire sitting on a powder keg. Every alliance was temporary. Every promise was conditional. And every man in the gang carried a fuse burning a little too close to the flame. The war begins. By 2012, cracks in the Brotherhood were impossible to ignore. Money had vanished. Egos were inflating. Paranoia was spreading like wildfire. The code, loyalty above all, was breaking apart under the weight of greed and resentment. Two factions emerged: the Bankstown crew and the Blacktown crew, each claiming they were the true heirs of the Brotherhood. What followed was a blood feud that made its way into living rooms across Sydney. Drive-bys on quiet suburban streets, houses riddled with bullets, families ducking for cover behind couches. A teenager was killed by mistake, the wrong car shot up, the wrong home targeted. Detectives called it a revenge cycle with no end. Journalists called it the return of Sydney's Gangland chaos. But to the men pulling triggers, it wasn't politics, it was personal. Wiretaps captured raw hatred in their voices. They took my brother. I'll take their blood. Police launched Strike Force Citella, mobilizing hundreds of officers, deploying drones, wiretaps, secret cameras. But for every arrest, two new foot soldiers stepped forward. Brothers for Life had become a hydra, and every head they cut off grew back with sharper teeth. The General in lockdown. By 2014, prison authorities struck back. They raided Hamzy's cell, discovering phones, ledgers, coded notes, and evidence he was running a criminal enterprise from behind bars. Their solution was extreme, total isolation. No visitors, no inmate contact. 24 hours a day, locked in a concrete box. For most leaders, that would have been the final chapter. But not for Hamzy. His empire had been designed to breathe without him. His lieutenants, cousins, childhood friends, Bikie allies, continued moving product, collecting debts, and expanding operations into fraud and illicit tobacco. The Brotherhood wasn't dying, it was mutating. Then came the event that shook the nation. October 2020. Mejid Hamzy, Bassam's brother, was gunned down outside his Condell Park home. 17 shots. Broad daylight. A public execution. No one claimed responsibility, but the message was unmistakable. Not even blood was sacred in this war. It was the kind of hit that could ignite a city. Police prepared for retaliatory carnage. But Sydney had grown numb to gunfire. Shootings had become background noise in a war with no finish line. The Melbourne Frontier. While Sydney burned, Melbourne watched with cold distance. A city with its own legends, the Carlton Crew, the Moran Wars, the Comancheros. A place built on old codes and older grudges. But around 2021, Victorian police noticed something strange. Old Sydney faces were surfacing. Money was being funneled south. Cars with New South Wales plates were seen outside high-risk venues. It wasn't an invasion, it was a migration. After Task Force Erebus and Morpheus cracked down on Sydney gang circles, the balance of power in Melbourne had shifted. Biker crews fractured, old families weakened, a vacuum formed, and the Brotherhood slipped in. They didn't announce themselves. They embedded themselves, laundering money through car dealerships, tobacconists, nightclubs, filtering meth and cocaine through legitimate fronts. By 2022, investigators believed fragments of the Brothers for Life network had established roots across Victoria, adapting, merging with local syndicates, teaching new recruits their code. The same tattoos, the same slang, the same vow, loyalty till death. Police saw the patterns. Firebombings, extortion, encrypted comms, dealers vanishing overnight. The Brotherhood born in Sydney's prisons had found a new stage, and Melbourne was becoming the next battleground. The law strikes back. To fight an organization that had no central leader, police had to evolve. In Sydney, Task Force Erebus hunted murders linked to the Hamzy-Alameddin feud. In Melbourne, Task Force Lunar tracked the tobacco wars and the financiers pulling strings from the shadows. What followed was rare. State and federal agencies shared intelligence, surveillance, and data in real time. Together, they mapped routes, tracked cars, monitored phone pings, and built a cross-border picture of a network that refused to die. Then came the breakthrough. A coordinated, multi-state sting brought down 3 key operatives tied to both cities, linking drug shipments, encrypted messaging networks, and laundered cash under the same umbrella. And in almost every seized phone, one phrase appeared again and again. B4L, Brothers for Life, wasn't an organization anymore. It was a brand, a myth, a whisper with more power than any boss. It lived in coded tattoos, in encrypted chats, in men who never met Hamzy but lived by the rules he carved in blood. And in the Underworld, a legacy like that is as dangerous as any gun. The code that never dies. Years have passed since Bassam Hamzy's isolation, but the streets haven't changed. Operations have become smarter, phones more encrypted, crews more scattered, but the motives remain identical. Money, loyalty, fear. For some, the Brotherhood offered family when the world turned its back. For others, it became a trap they could never escape. In every generation of Australia's underworld, a new face rises to carry the same old philosophy. Hamzy was one chapter, nothing more. The next chapter is already being written by men who have never seen his face, but worship the idea he created. The code outlived the creator, and in the shadows of 2 cities, it continues to evolve with every new soldier drawn into its orbit. From Bankstown's rough backstreets to Melbourne's neon high-rises, from loyalty to betrayal, from unity to ashes. This is the story of Brothers for Life. A brotherhood born in prison cells, raised on fear, and expanded across states. It promised family, but delivered funerals. Even now, the name flickers in encrypted group chats, whispered in prison yards, and scratched onto walls in fading ink. Not as a gang, but as a ghost. A reminder of what happens when loyalty becomes weaponized. You've been watching Crime Cipher. Faceless, respectful, relentless. If this decode pulled you deeper into the war between loyalty and power, subscribe, hit the bell, and comment Brothers for Life. This is Crime Cipher. Every clue unlocks a darker truth.